Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the Bible. We often talk about heroes and saviors, but what happens when leadership goes horribly wrong? What happens when ambition turns into a destructive fire, consuming everything in its path? Today, we're diving into a dark and cautionary tale from the Book of Judges, focusing on a man who was not a judge, but a wannabe king named Abimelech. His story in chapter 9 is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. So, who was Abimelech? He was one of Gideon's 70 sons. Now, you might remember Gideon as a hero who delivered Israel. But after his death, a power vacuum emerged, and Abimelech saw his chance. He didn't want to share power. He wanted it all. He went to his mother's relatives in Shechem and posed a manipulative question. Which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Gideon rule over you, or that one man rule over you? He played the family card, reminding them, "Remember, I am your own flesh and blood." Swayed by his words, the people of Shechem gave him silver from their temple, which he then used to hire a gang of reckless scoundrels. And what he did next is truly horrifying. He went to his father's home and, in a brutal act of ambition, murdered 69 of his own brothers on a single stone. Only one, the youngest son Jotham, escaped by hiding. With his competition eliminated, Abimelech was crowned king by the citizens of Shechem. But Jotham didn't stay silent. He climbed Mount Gerizim, overlooking the city, and shouted a parable. It's the first parable in the Bible, a story about trees looking for a king. The useful trees, the olive, the fig, the vine, all refused, as they had better things to do than to sway over the trees. But then they asked the thorn bush. The thorn bush eagerly accepted, but with a warning. If you really want to anoint me king over you, come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, then let fire come out of the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon. Jotham's message was clear. Abimelech, the worthless thorn bush, would bring nothing but destruction. And his prophecy came true. For 3 years, a spirit of ill will grew between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem. The very people who put him in power turned against him. The city descended into chaos, betrayal, and open rebellion. Abimelech responded with absolute brutality, destroying the city, sowing it with salt, and burning 1,000 people alive in a tower where they had sought refuge. But the cycle of violence didn't spare Abimelech. As he attacked the next town, a woman on top of a tower dropped an upper millstone on his head, crushing his skull. In his final moments, his pride was still his main concern. He ordered his armor-bearer to kill him with a sword, so no one could say he was killed by a woman. And so, the reign of the Thornbush King ended, a fitting and violent end to a life built on violence. After this chaotic episode, chapter 10 tells us Israel finally gets 2 new judges, Tola and Jair. They bring a period of peace and stability, a much-needed respite after the bloodshed of Abimelech. However, the cycle we've seen so often in Judges repeats itself. Once again, the people turned away from God and began worshiping false idols. Their disobedience led them into oppression under the Philistines and Ammonites. In their distress, they finally cry out to God, who reminds them of their repeated unfaithfulness. It's a powerful lesson. True peace and deliverance only come when we turn back to the one true King. Thanks for joining me today for this intense story. It's a somber but important part of the biblical narrative. If this was helpful, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time.